G'day guys, here again for another look at a Randwick meeting. This time it's from the 16th of April. Not quite the horseflesh we had to work with last week in the last week of the championships of the second round, but this is not a bad meeting overall, and hopefully we can get something out of it. So the first race, I better go through the track first. It was pretty fair. It looked like it was going to be an inside-outside sort of bias with the 9 metre rail, normally favouring those sort of inside and those wide in the track. No one really got to the wide part, except they had a little crack in the first, and it was quite difficult to make ground from back and sustain a long run. But other than that, it seemed like the track played pretty fair. You know, most of the ride horses won. There are a couple of funny races that we'll have a look at, but the track was not as bad as I expected anyway. So first race was the Tab Highway, a pretty low grade Tab Highway race, and there looked one real query horse in Circle Game that had potential to have more upside than the rest of them. But when it sort of paraded very soft and was soft in the betting, it just made the race like a very wide open race, and anything could win. The sort of first and second horses, I'd make it bigger. It was ran at a pretty solid pace, and both horses sit 3 wide, no cover. The second horse, Knights on Fire, sits 3 wide, no cover. The winner eventually gets on its back, but is 3 wide throughout. So they're both solid efforts. Not a lot happens to the turn, but we've got the winner, Unknown Destiny, on the back of Knights on Fire. Circle Game, the one the query horse, had pretty much every chance in here. The eventual third horse, Stranger in Paradise, has followed him through. This horse has held up a bit. Dylan's Dynasty, it was in the betting about $11 chance, but I don't think it made a huge difference. Unknown Destiny sort of sustains a pretty solid run. The early leaders are dropping out, and Stranger in Paradise is never going to win, but runs on well. There are a couple of runs I wanted to highlight for the future. Morangi was 1,000 to 1,200 here. He wasn't really suited. It was always going to be a tough ask, and he comes from dead last and puts in a good sprint down the middle before peaking late. His run's pretty good going forward. Dashy Deluxe is similar. She's sort of a horse that likes to be on pace and with a short dash, and that's about all. Not suited well back in the field, gets held up, checks off heels, and sustains quite a good run so she's in form. They're the two main ones going forward I sort of wanted to highlight, because this horse can improve. It was not suited by a quick jump up in trip, and this one was only first up, so those two horses can improve, and these two are obviously racing well. So a similar sort of race. Happy to be on these guys. 56 days I think between runs for Knights on Fire, and to race 3 wide, no cover up on a solid pace was a good effort. And the winner's been up for a while, but again 3 wide with cover and did well. Circle Game can obviously improve, but wasn't really too taken by what she did there, so interesting to see where they end up with her. Second race, 1,200 metre sprint for the 3-year-old, Nutwood, benchmark 83. Santa Ana Lane was the short price favourite. Not entirely sure why. It was gone the quick back up, and it was just back like there were no settling. I thought, it wasn't ideally suited from where it was drawn. It was never going to really find a position comfortably, and this was not a real gimme race coming out of 3-year-old grade 2 open class race, so it does get caught a little bit wide, but the pace is quite soft. Bowman's quite positive on it early, which I was surprised about. I thought he'd sort of just let it settle and use its turn at foot, but he used it both ends, and that can't have helped either, especially when he doesn't find a position. The horse we kind of liked at that place to stop it was Riker. He has to work a little bit hard, eventually gets cover, and his run was okay. The winner, Amarada, is just allowed to settle early, and is quite a good ride, ends up getting held up a little bit, but is in a good position in the run, does not spend a lot of energy. The second horse is Alert, ends up getting a great little inside run. And then Santa Ana Lane runs third. Rock for the Ladies is a good effort back and wide. A little bit of a problem with the race with Lucky Can Be, who was quite hard in the market, around an $8 chance, and did travel into the race quite strongly before something does happen, and she's pulled out of it, so that's a bit of a negative for the race. These two guys go for the outside. I don't think they quite make it to what is considered the fast lane, but they have a shot at getting wider. But Amarada's in behind them, held up urgently. Or she sees a bit of clear. Those Lucky Can Be sort of travelling into it hard on the bit before something happens. Nice little turn of foot Amarada, which he does have fresh. He's a nice little horse. There's not a lot to learn really here for mine. Alert's back in form, is fit now, ready to win a race. Amarada's just a very honest, solid, adaptable horse and will be competitive wherever it goes. Not sure what they're going to do with Santa Ana Lane now, whether they press on to sort of Brisbane or give it a freshen or something. I'm not sure, but it's obviously racing well. 1200's okay. I think it just does, back to 3-year-old grade and given a bit of a quieter ride, it'll better suited. Riker does not win out of turn, and even though he looked well suited here, he just did what he normally does. Lady Zhivago gets just checked out of it back here, a little bit disappointing. Rock for the Ladies' first run for Bjorn Baker was a really good effort, and he can definitely pick up a race if it finds conditions for the run-ons in maybe a little bit longer in the near future. But not a lot from me from that race, very straightforward, and a little bit hesitant over the race with that Lucky Can Be coming out. Took a little bit of its merit away. She could have definitely won that race, so it's a bit hard to be too confident on anything. The third race is the Frank Packer Plate. Old North are really heavily back favourite. Another one that was quite short considering he'd had a bit of a break between. He'd had everything at his, sort of in his favour last time, and whereas his Rocky had sort of raced 3 wide no cover. I wasn't real keen on him either yesterday, but I was very surprised at the backing for Old North. I thought he'd be quite easy and start around the 2-1, 5-2 mark, but he's well backed. His Rocky was well backed in $6. Asanara was quite soft and 9-2 third pick, and fourth pick Torgerson, clearly from the rest of the runners. They go very steady in front, and of the sort of tried horses, everyone has their chance except for Asanara, who races off the pace. He's our Rocky. Lobs on the perfect position on the back of Old North. He's pulling a little bit early on the soft pace, so his effort's good because they do not really ever pick the pace up. But again, these are the 3 place getters. Old North, Torgerson, he's our Rocky, and Asanara is the only one sort of further back. Not a lot happens, so we'll get to the turn where Clark's saved a little bit of ground, but he's still the only pace effective runner to try and getting on the back of these two, catching them. Torgerson getting the split inside. He's our Rocky and Old North. Clearly travelling the 2 strongest in the race. Asanara's dying on a run after having to do too much to catch them. Torgerson whacks away. Again, not a lot to learn. He's our Rocky, the better effort of the 2. They both basically had an identical run in the transit. Torgerson's had every chance, and Asanara's had to do a little bit of work, but still no real excuses. May gap the rest. Nothing to be learned here. He's our Rocky does look a promising sort of horse. I think probably all of these horses are struggling at the 2,000 metres, and will appreciate getting back to a mile probably in the springtime. Even if they have any press forward, I definitely don't think they'll be going any further. I think Asinara will be kept to sort of 1400 a mile from here on, and Old North similar. He's our Rocky, could be a two. He's the one who could. He's pulled in the run there and still strongest late in the race. So he's the one of any of them that you'd probably be most confident about getting 2,000 in the future. Race 4, the JB Carr, 1400 metres for the 3-year-old fillies. Another race where we were really surprised by the money for Pearls, starting at $2.20, heavily back favourite. She sort of profiled a lot better in the previous start, back from the mile to the 1200 metres and getting a much better run with a more solid, insured solid tempo there. And she was $21 that day, and now she sort of had a race where she was back up in trip, and even though it wasn't a strong race, she was never going to really find an on-pace position, and there didn't look to be much speed, and I thought she was a better chance at a previous start than this one, so I was very surprised she started at $2.20. Glyn takes the initiative early to take the front. There was one little criticism I had here of Brendan Abdullah, why he actually physically takes hold of Brigadoon Rise instead of sliding forward. Whether he would have definitely crossed Tremezina, and he would have either led on the rail or made Yatana work a little bit more, or made Lady Sniper work a bit more, and his horse wouldn't have got pulling and over racing. I don't know why he took hold early. May not have been a big deciding factor in the end, but it definitely would have changed the way you look at them stacked up now. He's over racing because of it, and the only horse really suited by this is Yatana. Tremezina's travelling well behind the leader, and they all are, but it sort of put him in a bit of a strange position that he didn't have to be in. I'm not a fan of restraining horses early unless you really have to. You just put them in a bad headspace for the rest of the race. Nothing's really happened. Hartlings, which was not really in the race anyways, raced wide with no cover for the entire race. All these horses in front have had a strong advantage from a very slow pace. Pearls is back here and never really in the race. Den Magic, who was just flying. It was a great ride after missing the kick a little bit back, jagged back to the fence, came along the rail, and she's strong late again. Unfortunately, the horses we were sort of on were No More Tears, Brigadoon Rise and Den Magic, and looked like one of them was going to get past, but Glyn had just held too slow a pace in front. Pearls finally gets clear to the outside and runs home quite strongly. Den Magic's probably just peaked on her run that last little bit after having to sustain her run to try and beat that slow pace. So not a lot to be learned again here, as nothing's really done anything crazy against that slow speed. You can be forgiving of these horses back because they're not suited at all. Obviously forgiving of Pearls, but that's the way she races, and she's always going to be dictated to by the pace. All these horses have run, okay, but they've had that slow speed in their favour, and nothing's really overly strong on the line. So it's a real nothing race for mine to learn much from, because the pace is so slow and you don't really know what would have happened. A bit of a shame that Brigadoon Rise wasn't allowed to go forward early. It might have changed, the way everything panned out, but that's how it works. Not worried to follow these horses going forward. Tremezina was a bit soft. She probably needs it back in grade. Tap This is not suited. These guys can be forgiving of. Shows you like a Hartlings has raced 3 wide, not in great form, and not got beaten a long way, so it's just a bit of a nothing race. Champagne Stakes. Shame obviously that Yankee Rose came out, but we were left with quite an open race, heavily backed, Faraway Town and Prized Icon. Wasn't sure where the pace was going to come from here, and Kiwi horse that was lightly raced sort of got dug up out of the gates and ended up setting quite a strong tempo. El Sicario, I think it's called Sicario back home there. And he breaks the field up early. Nothing really does a lot of chasing, so it's not really done a big damage to them, but he just drops out really early. Prized Icon's had the pretty solid run. He's not done a lot of chasing, even though he's the one dragging them up, but he's not done a lot of chasing, so he's okay. Faraway Town's the one that's probably most pace affected. He's out here working for the entire race. He's probably the most affected horse in the race. He's had to work very hard. Crown him Simla's had to work quite hard in the run, but Prize Icon probably just okay. So getting to the turn, eventual winner Prize Icon's the one is here. Second horse is Chimbora, who's had the 3 wide trail on the back of Faraway Town. Third horse Divine Prophet, who was jumping from a 1200 metre maiden to this mile Group 1, puts in a sharp sprint before peaking. He just wasn't seasoned enough for the race. He's a very interesting horse going forward, a good prospect, but he's kind of kidding to the leader here, even when it looks like they're going to get to him. Faraway Town's just done all this work and crying shame that he didn't get a sit in the race. Chimbora never really looks like getting there, and it's just super honest. He's only really given it 1-2, and he's strong late. Prized Icon. Every time Glyn sort of gets to him, he responds, and he's strong late. These two are peaking, grinding away. Divine Prophet, a very strong effort at only, I think, the 4th or 3rd race start. Faraway Town, the one that was stiff. Pop, had a good solid effort. The rest of them were sort of outclassed. Obscura probably the only one that was a bit soft compared to its price in the market, and El Sicaro just killed itself with the early speed battle. So going forward, I'd say this is nearly a grand final for most of these horses. Maybe Faraway Towns and Divine Prophet might go on to Brisbane. Chimbora and Prized Icon have definitely had a lot of runs, and maybe the Melbourne horses might end up going forward. A horse like Pop maybe go up there. It's a great effort at lightly raced horse coming way up in grade, so you definitely can't knock it. Definitely can't knock Divine Prophet. Wasn't suited going straight to a mile here and putting in a really good effort off a strong pace. And Faraway Town sat wide, no cover, and ran on strongly, ran well. He nearly hit the front with 200 to go, so it's a bit unlucky not to win the race, and a bit of a strange jockey choice for mine, but that's up to the owners and trainers. This horse, I've been a bit of had a lower opinion of this than some, and been caught out by it, and he just keeps finding he's a strong type, so he's capable of coming on in the springtime for sure. But all of these horses, it's a pretty average Group 1, as everyone was kind of aware before the race, so I'll be scared of using that as Group 1 form going forward, that's for sure. Probably the best race of the day here in the Hallmark Stakes. Speak Fondly was a heavily backed favourite off a failure first up, and it won a trial in between times where it looked like it might be back on track, but still even though it looked like getting a soft lead here, it was a bit crazy the amount of money that came for it. Targeting Sight was solidly backed 9-2. Back here. Federal was kind of solid. I was hoping he'd be in a much more forward position, but McDonald's obviously made the decision here that he's not going to get in, so he drags Federal out of the race early. Music Magnate, Speak Fondly, get a soft time of it up front. It is only a soft tempo, and you can see Music Magnate over racing quite heavily, racing really fresh as he is first up from a spell, so his effort to keep finding at the end of the race is quite incredible, considering he's over racing quite badly, expending a lot of energy, which at 1200 first up was always going to be a long way for him, so he's done a really good job. Tim Clark's got Noidart, the 50-1 pop that got beat 10-12 lengths first up, with the blinkers applied in the box seat. Art Lee, who ends up having a massive bumping duel in a second with Targeting Sight here, and Federal, who's just been dragged out of the race with Fast and Rocking, who does run third. back in the pack. Had a slow time of it here, and Speak Fondly is already under pressure. Tim's looking for the run and gets to the outside of Music Magnate, giving this horse every chance. These two guys are bumping and costing themselves both energy and time, and Federal's got the big job trying to run him down off the slow tempo. Fast and Rocking's up the rail. Eventually shakes off the bumping duel, this horse, and balances up. Federal's coming, but they all sort of run out of time. It's amazing to see that this horse got beaten here, and one of the most deceptive head bobs finishes I've seen for a long time. I thought Noidart won it clearly. But the kind of moral of the story is there's not a lot between these horses. This horse is a really strong effort considering he's over-raced quite badly in the lead and to kick on. But he did have a slow tempo there to help him. Federal, a great effort from back in the field. He's closed strongly against the tempo. Every chance really targeting side except for the bumping duel. But he's, arguably should have finished a little bit closer. Perfect ride from Tim on Noidart coming out of the box seat around one horse, and right there, Fast and Rocky never really held up, but he's similar to Federal. Maybe a little bit less merit in Fast and Rocky's run to Federal. Backman's a bit weak late, and even Charlie Boy, who's got well backs, running on, and Artlee's been in that bumping duel. So, real bunch finish, but one of those where it's quite a quality race, but there just wasn't a lot between them on paper before or after. So, I wouldn't be too scared by the bunch finish because they have gone a little bit slow, and I'd say all these horses placed well going forward are nearly in winning form. Even Artlee, you can see him late, like through the line, he's strong, and you see these two boys having a little chitty chat to each other, which was well publicised later, and apparently went right on with it. But that's racing. So yeah, Music Magnate, Noidart, Fast and Rocking, Federal, all probably going to Brisbane. Targeting Sight's been there before. Charlie Boy as well, all lightly raced, all going to Brisbane. Don't know where they'll go with Artlee, maybe same sort of road. They're all in good form and all can win a race that they're ready to. As a lot of people will say, that was a pretty average race because of the time would be average, I'm assuming. I haven't got it in front of me. But they have gone slow early, so a lot of people will be dismissive of this race because of the bunch margins, but there's some merit in most of the runners. Noidart's probably the one little worry in the race where he's still finished there when he's in poor form, but he did have the blinkers back on and may have just sparked up himself. So I'm willing to give nearly every horse the benefit of the doubt there and either call it a really glorified barrier trial where everything's just had a good run and it shows they're all in good form, or I'm a little bit positive about it. If anything, I think they've all run well. The All Age Stakes, and one of the strangest races I'll ever see. The trainer Lee Friedman came out before this race and said Malaguirre is going to try and dominate from the front, and you'll see early intent from Blake Shins there to definitely take the lead up. As soon as he gets there, he drops anchor, which is fine because he's on a 1200 metre horse, or a horse that's won over 1100 metres, showing a great turn of foot late, so it's fine for him to stack up. I'm not worried about anything out sprinting him, but when he starts getting these horses, like this horse has got 2400 metre form, Press Statement's coming off mile runs, and Perignon's a noted back marker, and they're all sitting outside him, and not only does he sort of kick up to make sure that he takes the front, he hands the front up to Perignon, who's a $51 chance, racing against its pattern, which he's, Blake's good enough to know that, and how he's got a 2400 metre horse first up from a spell outside him. I don't think I've seen a stranger decision in my life of racing to take that sit. He gave away any tactical advantage he had and any winning hope he had, that's for sure, and took a trail on the two probably roughest horses in the race. I'm not sure why he got away with it, but he came out and said he butchered it. Well done. Anyhow, the race is played right into the hands of English. She's had a cover the whole way. These horses have tracked up and been ridden against their pattern, basically. Not so much Press Statement, but these two, so they drop out. Malaguirre is basically out of the race now anyway, even though it does cop a check and ends up widest. Blackheart Bart's a wind-up horse. He's not a sit sprinter, so he's not being favoured by this. And the two horses that have been favoured are definitely English and Kermadec, who have the turn of foot. Rebel Dane as well, probably, but not in as good a form as them, and didn't get the run that these guys got. So they've both got the toe in. English, we know, has got the great turn of foot, and nothing more could have gone right for her here. Kermadec, a very similar situation, and he probably looks the winner here, considering he's the stronger horse on paper. You can see this guy's going through his gears. McAvoy takes a while to get into him. Compared to them, they've got the momentum up a little bit earlier, and that's what wins the race. You know, Blackheart Bart's probably a certainty beaten here. If there's any sort of a normal race, you'd say that he would have won and won comfortably. Who knows how Malaguerra would have gone with any sort of a ride. But the race we were left with, English has definitely taken advantage of every possible break going her way and held off a strong horse in Blackheart Bart. Kermadec's a little bit soft late for mine, which is very strange, and Press Statement's just not either the horse everyone believed or in the form that he was earlier in his career. He seems to be not finding the line at all. So these two horses are certainly flying. Kermadec's racing well, but I don't think he's at his best. Rebel Dane's at his best because we passed him, but he's racing honestly. Blackheart Bart's in great form. I'm sure he'll go to the Brisbane Carnival or something similar. Even if he goes back home to Melbourne, he'll run well somewhere. And I'd like to see English. I think that sort of shows that she'd had enough on the line for 1400. I'll be surprised. I know Go's talking Stradbroke, but it's a bit of a strange target. If they go forward with her this prep, I think she's sort of more a 1200 metre max horse at the top level. Blackheart Bart, he's proven to a mile or further, so he's definitely a chance in anything they go towards, and I'm not sure what they'll do with Kermadec, but he's not finishing his races off like he used to either. He was a run through the line horse, and he's not doing that. The JRA Association plate. Gardini was second favourite to a drifting Vanacoola. Bit of a funny race here where didn't look to be like Gardini looked to possibly be the quality of the race. It had the two runs and had the 2,000 metre run, which was its advantage over Vanacoola, who was second up off the 1,500 metre win. That sort of seemed to play a part in the end, even though Gardini sits wide, no cover, and they don't go too hard. They sort of go steady. But he's a really solid effort to win. Hawke's Burst second up. There's a blend of these sort of horses nothing was perfectly placed, and Gardini probably had the best worst setup for mine. Rudy and Weary had a great setup coming through the Doncaster, but they were both queries at the trip, so bit of a funny race. And an eventual second place getter here in Index Link 2 gets all the gun inside runs. Had the terrible barrier Bowman and does get race wide, no cover throughout. We sort of hunt forward. I don't want to spend too much time on this race. Every chance Weary, every chance Sadler's Lake, every chance of Vanacoola, every chance Rudy in the run. Does run out of luck late. Beyond Thankful, who turned his form around a bit here. And the winner is out here 3 wide on the side of these horses. So we come to the turn. Vanacoola's towing into the race beautifully. All these horses have had every possible chance. The only horse that's had a bit of a tough run's Gardini. The horse to watch in the straight who has no luck's Rudy. This is the second horse Index Link 2 gets all the luck. A much improved effort from Beyond Thankful. Vanacoola does get held up here a bit. Certainly gets held up, waiting to get off the heels of the eventual winner. But I was surprised how well Gardini sort of put them away quickly, even though he was lugging in. And he's got hold of the race here. Vanacoola's just a little dour, second up after that 1,500 metre run. You couldn't expect him to sprint as well as he did. there again, really. He's run well. Index Links cut up the fence and run well. Would normally be more aggressively against a horse of this nature who's got that sort of inside run, but wasn't suited second up, so it's hard to be too tough on him. It's good to see Beyond Thankful hitting the line again. And we'll go back and have a look at Rudy in a second. Vanicula was held up, but it doesn't look like it's changed the result. Gardini's just had lengths on him by the look of it. 3 wide, no cover, and put him away. So he's definitely the one to follow out of the race if he's to go up in class. Vanicula can improve. Second up wasn't suited here. We'll watch Rudy. Just never gets a crack at him. Bolting before the turn. Held up there. Goes for the same run again. Held up again in a minute. Still not touched. Hasn't produced the whip once. Just goes to reduce it. Held up again. Checked out of it. And then if you watch him against Beyond Thankful, he's hard held and not losing much ground about Beyond Thankful. So he's the one that probably should have been right in the finish. And I'm surprised he got the trip, but he did, off that good preparation. So it's a bit of a funky race where nothing was really suited, so it's hard to say that it was a really strong race, but you cannot knock this horse's run in any way, shape or form, and you've got to say he's got improvement in him as much as anyone. Vanicula you can't knock. This horse had you've got to be wary of its form, but it's also going to improve. Beyond Thankful's run well. Chris O'Brien, 2 rides for the day, a strong fourth and a win on Mighty Lucky in the last, a good effort. And I'm sure Rudy will probably try and head to the Brisbane Carnival and find something to run in. So again, I wouldn't be too crazy positive about the race, but they're all sort of middle distance types that are going okay. The first Even Casino Dancer can improve, and Hawkspur, who's not quite the horse he once was, is still going okay. He wasn't suited here. Weary didn't get the trip. I'd be more worried about these back here than the ones forward. They're all going okay. Lucky last, Mighty Lucky. I was guilty of penning the horse a bit, even though he had a lot of class on his side, race-wise. Chris O'Brien first up for Fred Cowell. It was a bit tough to find him. They did go pretty soft in front, probably just shy of an even tempo. Strawberry Boy and Religify end up running second and third. Nancy, who does over races outside of Grand Esteem here, Great Esteem, she runs fourth, and Pajaro and the winner, Mighty Lucky, fifth, and the winner. So this is a bit of an out of pattern win, really, considering it's a bit of a slow tempo and come from as far back as just about anything on the day to win. Not a lot happens in the run, as you see. Nancy does over race quite badly, and she spent a lot of excess energy in the run. Something to note for me, Religify, who doesn't really like to chase and doesn't really like anything off of a good surface, continues to put in here and actually goes past Strawberry Boy and looks the winner briefly. But Jaro's had to work into the race from even further back than Mighty Lucky and runs out of a bit of room late, but I think it was more how far back they went on it. Destroyed its chances. I was hoping to see it much further forward, but it's run well. Good effort from Less is More first up. Huge price today, and had to make the long wide run. And not a bad effort from Shoreham here late. So the winner comes through, and he's held up, if anything, as is Pajaro here, but for him to pick up as well as he did, and he really does charge through the line. But these horses aren't stopping. And you watch him right on the line, like he's literally running away from everything else in the race. Shoreham's running on quite well. Less is More's peaked late, but he's entitled to, and Pajaro's just had to make too long a run and petered out first up that last bit. He's just a good horse, Mighty Lucky. He's just better than these horses, and that's what he showed on the day. Great ride from Chris O'Brien. Well done to them. Coming out of the race, definitely keen to be with Mighty Lucky wherever he goes. I'm not sure if they'll keep Chris on or what the story is or where they're heading, but he's definitely going well and he's come back well. Legify's racing really well, and it was good to see him come from an off-pace position and run past a couple of horses, even though it was a soft tempo. Strawberry Boy first up, going well. Jaro's come back extra well. I prefer him a little bit closer to the speed. You know, maybe over a mile he can position up and he'll be able to beat next time. Nancy's a really expensive horse to follow. She's done some things wrong again there, and I'm not sure how you catch her. Shoreham's looking for much further, but raced well. Less is more further and raced well first up. The two Godolphin horses, Malice and Megcourt, have gone okay. The rest of them just runs, even though they weren't suited by the tempo. I think they had a shot at 1400 here with decision time, and they've worked out he doesn't get the trip anymore. So a few horses to follow out of this race because they're so early in their prep, and even Religify, you know, he's been up for a long time now, but he's racing well, and if he finds a race again where he can get 1400 metres and get to the front, he's racing really well, and he'd be tough to beat on a good surface. So hopefully everyone got something out of that. You know, it was a pretty straightforward meeting, but there were a few horses there that can improve going forward, or maybe, you know, were a little bit flattered on the day. So hopefully we've got identified a few of those, and even in the highway race, those sort of horses getting back to their right grade. You know, it's good to have something to look at going forward. So hope you enjoyed it again. Thanks, guys.